Hey, so let's go ahead and get started, and I'll share the replay on the Facebook group later. We're going to be talking about short-term rental setup. Now, if you've already set up your short-term rental, I know, Carrie, you've set up yours. I'm going to give a lot of useful tips, and there's a lot of people here that are looking to purchase their first short-term rental. But even if you've set up two, three, four short-term rentals, there's going to be little tips and tricks that I'm going to give you guys to help you when you guys are setting up your short-term rental. Short-term rental setup, there's actually three parts. We're going to try to tackle the first two today, and then the third part is actually the post setup. What do you do after you set up a short-term rental? The one thing I want you guys to do is I want you to act as if you're going to build this business to 100 rentals. And I think that was my biggest mistake when I first started. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to use the same systems, because the thing is, like, I can try to manage everything on my smartphone today. But I know when I first started, I was like, I'm going to use this system for this property, this system for this property. And that's just not sustainable. You want to have everything on the same app if you can. Start with the mindset that you're going to fire yourself. What do I mean? That eventually what you want to do is you want to automate everything as much as possible, and that you want to be able to hand it off to a virtual assistant and be obsessed with anticipating a problem. Like whenever I'm buying furniture, I'm thinking, oh, that crap's going to break right off the bat, versus something that looks very good. And when I go and set up my properties, I'm thinking these are the potential hazards that are going to happen. And these are the potentials where guests are going to get confused and contact me. I'm always obsessed with thinking, what do I have to do to make it to where the guest is not going to contact me or ask me a question? So there's three phases in football. They always say there's offense, defense, special teams. Here, there's the pre-setup before you close, the physical setup, which we always focus in on, and there's the post setup. But to be successful, you have to be well versed in all three. What I tell people is prioritize, because you can get tripped up very easy. So create a list and prioritize it, because it's very easy. It's like going into a shopping center, a Walmart or a Home Depot. You tend to just start putting crap in your shopping cart. I'm gonna let you know right now, just make a list and prioritize it. For me, I like to get my tech set up right off the bat, get my locks, change my locks, get the lock management in place, focus on safety. Then I set up my owner's closet, because the magic is the owner's closet, where you're going to be able to manage it from a distance. Then you focus in on design. And I think the biggest mistake we make as short-term rental investors is we focus on design first. We want to make it look pretty. And then you run out of time, because I'm going to let you know you don't have that much time, and time is money. So try not to add too much on your plate, because like I said, you're just going to keep adding more and more, because eventually you're going to get overwhelmed. And don't worry if you don't get finished. It's okay. It's okay to eventually delegate all of these tasks. And I think that was one of my biggest mistakes, because I was so used to, I have to get all of this done, because I wasn't in the CEO mindset. Once I put myself in the CEO mindset and start delegating those tasks, then I became at ease. But just know, focus in on the priorities, and then start delegating all of the other stuff to other people. So the pre-setup, it's obtaining all your city, county permits, know the rules and regulations. Some cities, depending on where you guys are going to invest in, will have really strict regulations. Like, for example, in Palm Springs, you could only have so many check-ins per year, or you have to actually physically meet them at the property. So just know all of those regulations ahead of time. Fire and safety inspections. So there's some cities, like I'm in Sevierville, you'll have to have a fire inspection once a year. So just know that ahead of time and before you actually start. So when I wanted to start renting out my Airbnb in there in Sevierville, they're like, hey, you have to have a fire inspection before you do that. So you don't want to skirt any of the laws. The one thing that's very helpful too, that's been helpful for my growth, is join a fake Facebook group. Join a local Facebook group, because a lot of people will have a lot of the answers for you. You could find tons of cleaners, handymen, and they'll answer a lot of the local questions for you that I can't. There's no way I could know every single market out there. Know what businesses licenses you need to operate, and use your realtor that you use to purchase the property, because they're going to be an amazing guide for you. They're going to have tons of local contacts for you. They're going to know the markets inside and out. There's something called My Lodge Tax. My Lodge Tax is very useful as well, because they'll actually, I know when I signed up, they helped me with the business license. And then the last part of the pre-setup is really drafting a team. So this is Howard Schultz. He said, we are not in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee. So it very much is a people business. Short-term rentals, if you're not a good people person, you're not going to be successful with short-term rentals. I can tell you that. It's managing people, unless you're going to be doing everything yourself. And at that point, you're going to get burnt out. So this is a picture of the Lakers, the greatest organization ever. I'm going to let you guys know right off the bat. The main thing is your cleaner. Think of that as your quarterback. If you have an awful cleaner, none of it matters. I can tell you right now, you're going to be very stressed out. I always like to get a backup cleaner. One of the biggest mistakes I made initially was getting a main handyman, thinking that would be it. Really, what you need to do is get like 10 different handymen, like a list of them, because whenever something happens, it's an emergency to the guest that's staying there, and they want someone there right away. And a lot of times, those handymen, they're not going to be able to go. You got to think, some these handymen, how much money are they really generating? Sometimes they're only making 20, 30, $40,000 a year. And sometimes you call them up the next year and they've moved on. They've moved to another city or something like that. And so there's a huge turnover in handyman. So don't be stuck with just one handyman. Have a main handyman and have like a bunch of other people you can call. Pest control. We have a monthly pest control. We have an annual pest control that's a little different. Like in the Smokies, we have these different bugs. I forget, carpenter bees that come. You have to have bed bug. I have bed bug control because it's not a question of if you're going to get it, it's when. So what I do is actually have dogs that go to my property like every 3 months, and they actually sniff it out. Trash service. In another market, we have someone that actually takes the trash from your backyard and puts it to curb. And then when the trash is picked up, they'll come back later tonight and put it back in. So there hasn't been a national one that has been successful. It just depends on your market. I think there's one called Can Monkey. So if you look up their website, but I think they're only in 4 or 5 different markets right now. Have an HVAC person, actually have multiple HVAC people. So you'll be surprised how many HVAC issues that you'll have multiple plumbers, electricians, a landscaper. A furniture store is actually one of the best contacts that you can have. I shared this with Scott. One place that I use is called Wholesale Furniture and Linens. And so if I ever buy a piece of furniture, they have a door code and they'll actually go in there and take, let's say if it's a couch, they'll take the old couch and replace the new couch. And having a furniture store place is actually really helpful. Interior designer has been really helpful for me, inspector, and sometimes if you're in new construction, the builder, I've contacted them multiple times. Finding the right cleaner. So let's talk about this. For me, I like a medium-sized cleaner. I don't like them too big, and I don't like them too small. So what do I mean by that? I've had people go with cleaners that have hundreds of rentals. What happens is on Sundays when they're busy and they get 2, 3 sick calls, each cleaner will have 15 minutes to clean your property. And what happens is there's not that personal touch. So I don't like them when they're too big. And a lot of times it's weird because good cleaners always get too big because people will refer them and they get way too many clients and it's too hard for them to manage. So I try to stay away from that. I don't like them too small either. I had really good feel with one of these cleaners. She knocked out every single question. She even called me back. There was a fire here in Northern California. She didn't realize how big California was because I'm in Southern California, like 800 miles away. And she was like, I hope you're okay. I'm watching the news and there's fires. I said, no, you're sweet. I'm like 800 miles away. I'm perfectly fine. But the thing is, she was a husband and wife, a team, and I couldn't use them. And to be honest, and they're old. They're like in their 60s and 70s. It's not that they won't do a good job. I trust that they're going to do an amazing job. But what happens if there's a huge party on like the cabin before and they're stuck there for 5, 6 hours and they can't get to mine? So that's why I really worry about it. What systems do your cleaners use? Ask them what systems they use. If they don't use any systems, I don't see it as a huge red flag. When I started, my cleaner wanted checks written. I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta go purchase checks again. And not only that, she wanted screenshots every time, like at the end of the month, to send the calendar. But she did a great job. And so I didn't think that was a deal breaker. But the thing is, what happens when you have to scale, get 2, 3, 4, 5 rentals? Remember, I want you to build this business as if you're going to have 100 rentals. That's just not scalable, sending people screenshots or sending people checks, writing them checks at the end of the month. There's all sorts of different software out there. There's one called Turno, which it used to be called Turnover B&B. The reason why I like it is because when I get a booking, they get the booking in their calendar. When there's a cancellation, they get the cancellation. So I don't have to tell them anything. And not only that, Turno, they will actually mark off completed and they get paid right then and there. I don't have to send them a check. There is a list that's available to them on Turno if you wanted them to do specific tasks. But to be honest with you, I don't like micromanage my cleaners. I just trust that they're going to do a good job. There's other ones. I've used VR Scheduler, Resort Cleaner. There's one called Breezeway that's really popular. Any of those work really well because the main thing is you're giving them an iCal link and the cleaner can go and clean the property. You don't have to tell them, hey, Scott just booked my property from December 1st to December 3rd. They're going to know right off the bat. Reputation and referrals are key. There's not one cleaner that I'm using today that a friend of mine hasn't used. So referrals, that's the way I do it. I've never had success going blind and looking for someone online. They've all been based on someone else's experience. How big is their team? And do they still clean, and what is their role? What you'll find is that your cleaner might answer your questions and hit it out of the park. But what you'll find is that the cleaner never cleans. She just manages all these different people, which is not a deal breaker. I have one cleaner in the Smokies. She is an absolute badass and she just manages her team. But you could see that her demeanor and how she runs the show is pretty strict. Sometimes, like I said, when they're too small, like if they have a team of 4, I'm like, that's tight for me. I don't like that. And when you interview them, to be honest with you, it really is about a feel. Like, how are you going to work with them? The thing is, one cleaner was a pain in the butt with us. It was just, she just complained all the time. Whenever we said, hey, we got a bad clean, and we text them what the guest said, she was like, she just complained about it all the time. And so, do we really want to work with these people in the long run? And is it going to be a headache? Notice that costs, it comes last, right? A bad cleaner that will charge you less is going to cost you more in the long run. And I see in the forums all the time that people are saying, hey, this cleaner is charging me this cheap. I should go with this because they're $50 cheaper or $100 cheaper. They're probably charging less because they can't find the right business. And they're struggling to find the right business, maybe because they're a bad cleaner. Here's some tips. Interview at least 3. The day you close, at least meet them in person. For me, like in the areas that I invested in, it was weird. The handshake went a long way. Just meeting them in person versus I know a lot of investors that have never met their cleaner. You build that like personal relationship with them. Do they have any references to other trades? What you'll find is that your cleaners will be a huge resource for you. If you ask them, hey, do you have any handyman, electrician, plumber? They're local. Like in Gulf Shores, it's a small town and everyone knows everyone. And so my cleaner there knows anything I need, right? So they can be a huge help for you. Ask them if they can help you set up. Sometimes it's the slow season. I was in Gulf Shores when I closed in December and January. She was there helping me set up the whole time. And you build that relationship with them. I do have a questionnaire that is in the Google Drive. So I would ask you guys to pull that up and just read through that. But if you don't read through any of those questions, just tell them, I'm brand new, walk me through the process. And just let them talk. Let it go silent. The more silent and awkward, the better. Because you're just going to let them just spill the beans. And what you'll find is that a good cleaner will talk your head off. And then they're going to get like really passionate about explaining the whole process. Whereas like the people that aren't as detailed will ask you, what do you want to know? So that's like, I don't know, a red flag, yellow flag there. Sometimes a cleaner will do extra for you. We had one cleaner who really wanted the community really bad. So what she was doing is, as the builder was building the property, she was like walking the properties for us. And so I was like, hey, Mandy, can you go over there and measure this for us? She's like, yeah, no problem. And she actually got in trouble by the builder. She was like, hey, don't step foot in here. This is an active construction site. A good cleaner will actually do a lot more for you than you ask. Ask them, what can I do to my property to be successful? And you're asking for their input, and that's actually really valuable for them because they realize that it's a partnership at this point. There's too many owners out there that are trying to micromanage the cleaners, and it's just not successful. And what you'll find is that there's some owners that get fired by their cleaners versus the other way around, the owners firing the cleaners because they're doing a bad job. Here's the main thing: if you find a good cleaner, pay them good, treat them like gold. Because I'm gonna let you know, like the second you have a bad cleaner, you'll pay whatever you can to get them back. I don't know how many of you guys have iPhones. This is something that I didn't know when I first got into it. You can actually create lists. And what I do is I create Smoky Mountains contacts lists. And you can categorize everyone there, because I'm gonna let you know that you're gonna come across so many different people that you're gonna forget. Like Scott, I'm sure you got the same list that I got from Tyler. What I would do is add them to a list and put Asheville contacts or North Carolina or Western North Carolina contacts. Like I said, grow this as if you're going to have 1,000 contacts on your phone. And so that way you can pull it up. So write a note, even a location or trade, just so that way it's easy to pull up, to where I could just go on my iPhone and just, if I type in plumber, it comes up. Here's a pro tip: ship items in advance. Ask your cleaners. A lot of them will say yes, but if you send them too much shit, you're sending it to their house. And then put your name on the box, the name of the property, because they get tons of boxes and they don't know who the boxes go to. But if they can't accept all your items, the thing that's worked out really well for me is Amazon Locker. They'll actually hold your stuff for 3 days. There's also something called the Amazon Hub, which I haven't used, but they'll hold for 14 days. Obviously, you could see the size of the lockers. It has to be a certain size. And the one thing is, after 3 days, you won't get charged for it. They'll just return it back. So there have been times where I've purchased stuff because I didn't know what time closing is going to be, but I didn't have that worry. I knew that if we didn't close on time, it would just get returned and credited to my account. If you need large items, you might need UPS, and you can actually create one of their box or lockers. You could actually rent one of those out and they'll actually hold it for you for longer. We actually had this for one of the signage that we bought, and it was like $100 or something like that. And they held it for us for, I think, 2 weeks. So if you need something big, they'll actually hold it. You can always ship to store. Walmart will ship to store, and Home Depot will ship to store too. So that's been something that I've done. Any questions out there so far?
I got one. Do you provide cleaning protocols and staging, like photos and stuff? I haven't done that yet. I've been advised to. And I did what you said not to do. I hired a good talker, and it had to fire her after the first clean. And then ended up using an older couple who cleaned a whole bunch of properties on my block, which actually was worked awesome. They were always there. They
Yeah.
took care of my garbage. They would stop by and check on things. Like, it was
Mhm.
amazing
Yeah.
until the husband passed away suddenly in July. And basically, the wife, I realized he did 90% of the work. And basically, I was without a cleaner and had to scramble. Or no, I had offered to let my cleaner go off platform, but honestly, like same as you, I love it. The scheduling's all done and in one place. Yes, I pay like an extra $10 per clean, but
Yeah.
if there's any changes, like they get paid. I don't have to deal with any of the payment and that kind of thing. From a time perspective, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But I've never provided any more specific guidance on how to clean. Initially, my original cleaner brought her own supplies, supposedly. I don't think she did. And then my last cleaner, he did, but my newest cleaner uses supplies I provided. So they all kind of work a little differently. And like I recently discovered, I think we have to change the floor cleaner I have. But had I known that, or even the staging, like just from the one cleaner I used who actually sent me some pictures, I'm like, oh, this is out of place and this is out of place. And
Yeah.
it's not like
Mhm.
deal breaker, but
Yeah.
had I had a staging like guide with photos and stuff that was easily accessible, they would have known where to put stuff back. So I was just curious what else you would recommend to help make sure that the cleaners, or if you have to use a separate cleaner, that it's sufficient.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. It's just like one thing that you guys, when you purchase your short-term rental, when you come back to it every 3, 4 months or whatever, people have moved the furniture around. And you're like, what the heck? This doesn't make any sense. I don't provide that. I do have people that go in there every so often, maintenance people. And so they will do walkthroughs for me. And as far as cleaning protocols, I don't provide any cleaning protocols. You just trust the whole process. Is that a flaw of mine? So far, so good. I'm probably the last person to tell someone how to clean something. So I don't know if I would do a good job trying to dictate them how to do something. So
Yeah, I think it's a fine balance for sure. And I think the really good cleaners, they've been doing it long enough. They know what the guests are looking for and where they're going to get complaints and what to look at more closely. And if they don't, then you bring it to their attention, you work with them to make adjustments or make sure it's something that's looked after regularly and take it from there.
Winna, you have a question here?
I do. I've heard this before. People tip their cleaners at the end of the year. Do you do
I
that
do.
or
I tip them well. And the one thing that I do is I tip everyone on their team, and they absolutely love it. Because the thing is, the cleaners will have one of my cleaners has now the first year was really good. Out of it is my cleaners was like, oh, I have 8 people on my team, and I said, okay, who? Or she said, I have X amount of cleaners, and I said, who else is on your team? Like the people that do the laundry. I said, give me their name, and I wound up giving them, I think, $200 each the first month or the first year of ownership. And it was like the first house that needs to be cleaned. Guess what? You know what I mean? So I do tip them. Not only that, if I know that we had a busy season, like it was a very stressful season, I'll send them something. Times have been tight. Like this summer, I feel bad we didn't tip them. Not only that, the one thing that I do that's a little different, I'll tip them before Thanksgiving around there, because when do they need the money? They're probably going to use that money to buy gifts for their own family, especially if they're doing an amazing job. I'll tip them.
Thank you for that.
Okay, let's get physical. So minimum 4 days. And I'm gonna let you know those are gonna be like the 4 longest days of your life. I don't know how many trips to Home Depot, Walmart that you're gonna make. 5 to 7 days is better. But remember, time is money. The longer you are working on this property, the less that it's getting rented out. So try not to stretch it out. I had someone do it for 2 weeks. I said, that's way too long. Because to be honest with you, if I'm at my property, I will keep finding stuff to do. And at a certain point, you just got to go live with it and start figuring it out and start managing it from a distance. But yeah, 5 and 7 is better. Hire help if you can. One of the best things that I started doing was hiring handymen to come help me out and pay them for 4 hours. Say, hey, I'll pay you for 30 bucks an hour, 40 bucks an hour. I just need an extra pair of hands for 4 hours. And I'll just put a list on the door and I'll say, let's just start checking these things off. The reason why that's helpful is because you see their work ethic. And not only that, you build like this really cool rapport with them. Like my handyman, I found out that he's a huge Tennessee Volunteer fan. And so during Christmas, I actually sent him like a Tennessee Volunteer t-shirt. And not only that, when they were winning their football games, they beat Alabama a year ago. And Alabama was like the #1 ranked team. I texted him right there. I said, hey, Billy, go Vols. And it just goes a long way. Hire that help and you're going to build that rapport with them. Rent a truck or SUV. I think initially I was renting these small cars and then I go to Best Buy trying to jam these TVs in there. I was just spend the extra money. You don't want to be that guy. Buy some basic tools. This is going to help you a long way. You don't have to get fancy. Like all my tools I get from Walmart and spend like I get this cordless drill at Walmart for 35 bucks each time versus trying to screw something in with just a regular, what's it called, screwdriver. Now I just go in there. Beep, beep, beep. Really what you're buying is time. Like this whole set right here, this whole picture that we have is probably going to cost you $100. You don't have to get anything fancy, just something really basic. But this is probably going to speed up your setup by 4 hours a day. Just being able to, because when you're assembling furniture, I don't know about you, I don't read directions, right? And so I just go in there and I just start assembling it and I always do it wrong. And then you'll have to redo it. So just buy a set of tools. The other thing that I'll tell you is track your hours. The reason why we're investing in short-term rentals, or one of the big reasons, is because we want that tax break. All of these hours, these long ass days, we want to track all of that. And the one thing I'll tell you is if you're doing it as a couple, both of you guys should be tracking. Carrie will be upstairs setting up the bedroom, and then downstairs her significant other setting up the kitchen. Those hours will count. Highly recommend using Reps Tracker. We'll get into that later when we start talking about taxes. But if you don't use that in the Google Drive, I do have a Google spreadsheet that you can use that. When I first started, I was using a Google spreadsheet. Regret it. But if you don't have anything, you could use that Google spreadsheet. Day one, hit the ground running, do a walkthrough video prior to doing everything. And to be honest with you, just start building a brand with it. And even that is really nice B-roll. I'm sure, I bet you like 2-3 years later, I wish I had that video and it's like a before and after video where I am now. But if anything, just do the walkthrough video, meet and interview the cleaners in person day one. As you're closing, you'll say, hey, can you meet me here on this day for a quick 15-30 minute interview? Just so that way you can walk the property. And what you'll find is that each cleaner, it's really weird, will have something else to say about the property. Oh, like, hey, you need to do this, or you should install this in your property. Or, you know what, I manage a property right next door and they did this and it works really well. Off the bat, I like to set up the Wi-Fi. Scott, what you'll find is Spectrum. They'll take 2 weeks or something like that. If you tell them, hey, can you set up today? They're going to tell you we're 2-3 weeks out. So schedule.
I had the opposite experience. I asked for it on the 16th and they told me a million times, yeah, the 16th, it was there in less than 24 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like it's there already.
Oh,
and
cool.
I haven't closed yet.
Yeah. I've had that before and we're like, oh crap, I set it up. I asked them way too late because closing came too fast. Call your cable company or whoever you're planning to use internet service with or get internet service with, call them ahead of time. Day one, I like to set up. The reason why I like to get the Wi-Fi set up is because I like to get the tech stack set up right away. And we'll go over what the tech stack that I use. And you're taking inventory of what you need. Because like I said, you're going to make so many trips to Home Depot and Walmart and plan out your owner's closet if you can. Because the next day you're going to start going to get all those things. So let's talk tech stack. So tech stack is all of your technical stuff that you're going to manage from a distance. You can definitely just use a key if you want to with your door lock. I actually have to use that for one of my properties in Gulf Shores because it's a storm door and you can't put a smart lock on there, but I hate it. The Schlage on-code is the one that everybody uses. I'm gonna let you know right now. I've used the one on the lower right-hand corner, the August. It got amazing reviews, but I hated it. Because the reason why is because it looks like a hockey puck. And when people slam the door, the batteries get jarred. Or like they look at it and they look confused. They're like, what the hell is this big circle thing? And not only that, you have to buy a keypad on top of it. So you're buying the lock and then the keypad. And there was like too many things going wrong. The other thing that people use is the Yale. I don't have anything bad to say about it at all. It's just what you want to do, like I said, is build this business as if you're going to have 100. Everyone uses the Schlage on code. And it integrates a lot with a lot of the software that's out there. Big problem with Schlage on code is because it's in such high demand, they're hard to get. Master lockbox, just always anticipate a problem before it happens. This probably happens every 2-3 years or so, is that the keypad dies and people can't get in. And so just have a backup and just store it somewhere hidden. Some pro tips: make a digital copy. Over at Lowe's, you could actually make a copy and it'll store the actual key there. And so that way, if you ever need to make a key again and you lose your main key, they actually have it. They'll email you the the footprint or whatever. Make 3 copies, take one home, put one in the owner's closet, and have one in the master lockbox.
Hey, Alex, I actually was worried about people making copies, so I went to a locksmith. However, I'm told there's still no guarantee that somebody would still attempt to make a copy. But how do you manage that? Because that's always...
It's tough. It's tough. I worry about that all the time at my Gulf Shores property, but I haven't had any issue. But there's no way around it. I can't put a smart lock. The only way around it is we're thinking every so often you just change the door lock, and it's going to cost you so much money to rekey the door. I think it cost me $30, but the thing is for them to rekey it, but then you got to make copies all over again. To be honest with you, haven't figured that part of it out. That's why I like the Wi-Fi smart lock, is because a couple of the homes I've never given the backup key at all. Oh, here's the other thing that I found out. Every now and then your Wi-Fi door lock will disconnect from your Wi-Fi and you're trying to program the guest door code in. So the one thing you need to do is create multiple backup codes just in case while you're there. So here's the trick I did is I created like 12 of them. January, so it's 01, and then the year is 23. So 0123. And so the guests never know. So like in January, if they ever ask, hey, my door code isn't working, oh, can you use 0123 or 0124 or whatever it is? Have multiple codes there. Like all of mine have an emergency code 0911. And then what's cool is you can also track your cleaner's time through the keypad. So it'll say, oh, Scott's cleaner entered at 10:31 and they left at 10:45. Hey, man, you're only there 15 minutes. What's the deal? So yeah, give your cleaners, give your handyman so many codes. That Schlage on code will carry 100 codes. So there's some that do more, some that do less. That's why I like the Schlage on code. Humidity packs. So one of the flaws of Schlage on code is that in beach markets where it's really wet, is that because the batteries are exposed, and so what'll happen is the batteries will leak through, and then the lock itself will fail. So the one thing you could do is put humidity packs in the back, and it absorbs the moisture. And so those only cost like maybe $15 for a good 20 pack or something like that. The Schlage on code will connect with a lot of your property management software systems, and it'll change to the last 4 digits of the guest phone number. And it's only good from the time they check in to the time they check out, which we really like. Once we started going to this program, we had a lot less people contact us, because before we had the August lock, and the August lock gave a random code to everyone. And every time the guest checked in, they were like, hey, what's my code again? And versus our messages saying, hey, the last 4 digits of your phone number is going to be your lock. Security cameras, I prefer the ring camera. I like the wired ring floodlight. Totally up to you. This is very subjective. I know people that use Arlo, Blink, whatever you want. For me, I didn't want to change batteries. And so that's why I went with the ring floodlight. And I try to do it for every single home. Don't ever have it indoor, and don't point it at your hot tub. That's pretty nasty. So the only thing that I would say, this one's easy to find. I've never had any issue going to a Home Depot or a Best Buy trying to find a ring floodlight. They're always there for me. You don't even have to get the newer ones. You could get the older ones and they work just as fine, just as good. Another thing is, guys, don't watch your guests. And I'm guilty of it. Like initially, like I was like, oh, what are people's reactions when they walk in? Like how many people are coming in? To be honest with you, I almost have this attitude like it's better that I don't know. People ask me about the ring floodlight. What I do is I'll replace the porch light, but buy this little thing. It'll cost you like $2-3. Because what was happening is people were installing the ring floodlights and people were just turning them off. So just buy this little gadget here, so that way people can't, it just stays on the whole time. They're pretty easy to set up. What you do is you give your password to your handyman and then just change your password after. So he'll download the Ring app, and then, so you could do this all remotely.
Alex, where do you get that clear thing for the switch?
Amazon. I'll send you a link. Toggle, if you just look on Amazon, toggle switch lock, you'll find that right there. And because so many of my friends are like, hey, the guests keep turning off my floodlight. I'm like, yeah, I would turn it off too.
Yeah, I've only had it happen once, and I have a do not turn off, but
yeah, pain in the ass, right? You could set a timer. This is up to you. The one thing I'll tell you is that a lot of trips slip, trips, and falls happen like when the guest is coming into your property. So I like to set my timer like around midnight. That way it's on up until midnight. If not, they always come on, so it's no big deal. But sometimes if you want like those quiet hours, depending on where you guys purchase, you're shutting the lights off at a certain time on them. I use the Honeywell T6 as my Wi-Fi thermostat. To be honest with you, you don't really need this. This is optional, but there'll be an issue. The reason why, so these are like $100 to $130 online. I've gotten the Honeywell T9 and it's a little bit more complicated. So I do the Honeywell T6. There's different thermostats out there. To be honest with you, when I look at it and it looks too complicated, I'm like, oh man, the guest is going to think it's too complicated and contact me. So I like it being very simple. The reason why I like the thermostat is because I've had it where the guest is telling me, hey, it's too hot in here, and they have it on heat. And they're wanting it on AC, but that's something you could manage on your phone and troubleshoot. So that's the main reason why I like it. Not only that, what you want to do, so pro tip, is you want to set a minimum and maximum. Because I'm gonna let you know, if you don't have a minimum, your guest is gonna set your AC to 52. If they're Asian, they think of it as free AC. They're just gonna run that thing all day long, and this is what's gonna happen right here. It's just gonna freeze, especially like in the summer months. So set a minimum and maximum. I think I have my minimum to 65. That's the lowest they can set it. I don't know. To me, 65 is really low. But the other thing is with if they mess around with this, they can accidentally lock it. So just make sure you write down the PIN number. Your guest will go through, I'm gonna let you know, and lock it. And then after that, they can't control it. So just write the PIN number down. Get a Wi-Fi mesh router. Don't skimp on Wi-Fi at all. I've used several different ones depending on the market, and I hate it because Spectrum's available in some markets and it's not in others. And one place I have T-Mobile and one place I have AT&T. So I freaking hate it. If I could have it all on one, I would. If you are in mountain communities and there's nothing available, I've used something called Viper Broadband. So Viper Broadband, it's pretty much just a mobile hotspot. It did okay. But the one thing I would recommend is getting a mesh router. This is the one that I use. It's called the Eero Pro 6. It's expensive, but once I install it, I never have any issues with it. So I keep using the same product. You can do speed tests from a distance. You can even see how many devices are there. And if you're really watching, like how many people are at your property, you could kick them off the Wi-Fi if you're pissed off at them. So there's a lot of little cool things that you could do with the Eero Pro 6. There's something called StayFi. Now, StayFi is this little device. It could work in conjunction with this, but this is also a Wi-Fi mesh router. But the reason why people are using this is because when guests log onto your Wi-Fi, they have to enter in their email. And then you can start target marketing to them. There have been some bad reviews with this, and I think it's because they're not using this on top of it.
Can you explain the need for a Wi-Fi mesh? Because I have a pretty small house. I don't need help spreading the internet.
You
So
probably don't.
Reason
Yeah.
beyond that to
Yeah.
need to use it?
If you don't have a mesh, or if you have something small, you probably don't. Like whatever your cable company is providing or your internet service provider should be fine. I have a 20, like the first house I bought was 2,400 square feet. And I remember in the master bedroom, the Wi-Fi was really slow. And I'm like, you know what? Like it's the person that's paying has like the worst Wi-Fi. So they're pretty much just extended routers, but the mesh is just, I don't know, it just makes it easier for people because there's not they're not choosing which network to join. And there's really just one network. This one is a tri-band router. So the thing is, there's 3 different channels. So I think I don't know, there's less traffic because there's 3 different channels. Like you can have all of your TVs and all your other devices on one channel and the other one's for your guests. And it's optional. It's optional. And if I had a small place, I might not do it. It's just, like I said, I've been putting them in all my places. So I even if I had a small place, to tell you the truth, I'd probably still do it because it's just a system that I put in every single home. People always ask me about TVs. So we used to provide cable. We're cutting the cord right now. Because to be honest with you, cable has been a pain in the ass. Because a lot of times people don't know how to use the remote control. And so we've gotten more complaints of that, trying to turn the TV on, putting it on input, and learning how to use the cable remote versus having one remote. So if you are going to buy a smart TV, I highly recommend the Roku. The reason why is because like a lot of these places I'm using Spectrum. And so Roku has the One Spectrum app. But even at that point, I'm coming to the point where I'm about to cancel the Spectrum streaming service. The other thing is there's something called guest mode on Roku. So people can type in the date that they're checking in to the time they're checking out, and it logs them off automatically. We haven't pushed that yet because, to be honest with you, we do have different TVs out there. But when we have the Roku TV, we haven't pushed that yet. And so far, so good. What you'll find, what's crazy is whenever I go to my properties, someone's logged on to Netflix, someone's logged on to Disney. There's all of these people that are still logged on, and you could easily just watch Netflix or Hulu or whatever. Has it been a deal breaker for us, or do we feel the need to provide all those services? Probably not. And you'd be surprised, like a lot of people haven't been complaining about it. I think like I said, the most complaints we've had are people that don't know how to operate the cable TV. We did just start using YouTube TV, so we'll see how that works. People always ask, like, how many TVs? Like minimum 2 TVs. These TVs are dirt cheap nowadays. Just to have one in one of the bedrooms, especially the kids' bedroom, so that way it separates people. And then the main room. Stash a remote. These remotes get lost all the time. And create a video. Okay, so a lot of times people have a hard time doing certain tasks. What you'll find is I have a video for almost everything on how to do like the dumbest task. You'd be surprised, and people will be like, "Oh, I figured it out. Thanks for the video." Know that the guests will get confused and just obsess with trying to make it as easy for them as possible. A safety issue is always mount your TVs. I don't know why people aren't doing this. It costs you like $30-40 just to mount the TV. So always mount the TV. That's day one. That's a lot. And so day 2 to 4, I'm trying to figure out the owner's closet, stocking backup supplies and essential stuff, anticipate and make it easy for your cleaners and handymen. So I have a lot of backup supplies for them. The owner's closet to me is where the magic is. And what I can tell you, what I would do is I would take a label maker and then I would just start putting par levels. And so like when certain things get too low, then that's when they contact you. Some of the stuff that I put in my owner's closet, HVAC filters is a big one. Because if you're not giving them HVAC filters, they're not changing it out. They're not going to go to the store and go through the hassle of changing it. And at that point, you could damage your HVAC if you have your filters there too long. Hot tub filters, refrigerator filters every 6 months. I have backup linens, backup quilts, extra pillows, backup pots and pans, because pots and pans tend to last like a year and a half or so. Plates and glasswares, they tend to break all the time, so I get backups. Coffee maker pods, I tend to stock about 6 months worth of pods. So that's subjective because sometimes people use them and sometimes people don't. Extra batteries, I have a ladder in there because you want to make it easier for your cleaner. Because if you don't give them the tools, they're not going to do it. Like I have one HVAC filter that's hard and they weren't changing it out. And I realized I'm like, maybe it's too hard. Maybe I need to provide them a ladder. Extra game pieces, like I have an air hockey table. The pucks for some reason always go missing. So just anticipate that you'll always lose stuff. And so I always have some extra in the back. And then pet supplies, like the doggy bags, I have them back there. How you guys doing? Any questions?
No, I was going to make a comment. It hasn't come up yet, but I stashed a paper bag in my master bathroom under the sink with batteries, light bulbs, like anything where it would be a pain in the ass to send somebody over that a guest could easily fix. So again, like you said, thinking ahead to potential problems and what could come up.
Yeah, my secret stash area is above the fridge. If I know we've had people complain about toilet paper, hey, there's not enough toilet paper or there's not enough towels, I'll always have 2 or 3 toilet paper up there. And so whenever I go to my properties, I'll stash some there. And so that and above the what's called the stove. Most people aren't looking up there, so it's a little too high. So those are my secret stash. Bedrooms, so get king beds if you can. They actually help you in the algorithm. People do look for king beds. There's a Zinus mattress. The 10 to 12 inch ones on Amazon work really good. Beds are subjective though, because I can tell you, like, sometimes I get the nicest beds and people complain that it's too hard. Just know that you're not going to be able to please everyone. Bed bug protectors are big with me. I'm like scared of bed bugs. Like I said, it's not a question about when you're going to get it or if you're going to get them, it's when. So I put bed bug protectors on everything, even the box springs. That's actually where they live. So bed bug protectors on the box springs. The way you prevent that too, so there's a picture of this bedroom here. If I were a guest and I had luggage, a lot of times they would just plop it right on the bed. And so what you want to do is prevent that and put luggage racks. What I like to do is right here on the bottom is I'll put a bench. I'll put a bench there or put a bench here, and that way people just put their luggage there. Lamps with USB chargers is totally up to you. Ceiling fan remotes, if you have them.
Question. You mentioned about the bedbug dog. How does that work?
So there's dogs that sniff them out.
You just hire, like, where do you get that?
Yeah, so each market I found them. I'll just Google bed bug and dogs. And so they'll go there and sniff out the bed bugs. When you start researching the life cycle of a bed bug, it's typically close to 3 months from the time they're there until they hatch. And so the dogs are trained to sniff them out, and then they'll send you a report. They're pretty cheap, to be honest with you. It's $30 every 3 months or something like that. Yeah, linens are going to depend on your cleaner. A lot of cleaners will actually provide the linens for you. And so what I like to do is I like to hand that off to the cleaners, and I'll enroll in a cleaner linen program. They'll be like, hey, $600 every 6 months. I'm going to change them out. You don't ever have to worry about it. That's what I like to do. How am I doing on time? I'm gonna try to speed through this. So that's the linen program. Mattress protectors. Get you some mattress protectors, especially for the kids' beds. If you have one there, because they're gonna pee the bed. I'm gonna let you. Backup linens. I always have backup linens in my properties because I realize sometimes you'll get booking and the cleaner that you have might not be able to clean that certain holiday. And so just have a stash of a full set of linens somewhere. So that way, if a backup cleaner comes, they're able to just swap those out. And the other thing too is, what happens if you ever have to fire your cleaner, or like Carrie said, what if the cleaner dies or something like that and you're left with no cleaners? I always like to have a backup. Kitchens, it's very regional depending on what they do in those areas. For example, my cleaner was like, hey, you need to have a stock pot. I'm like, what the hell is that? I don't even know what it is. But she was like, hey, a lot of people make soup out here during Thanksgiving, so just get one. Plates, people ask me how many plates, cups, so on and so forth. I always say like about 1.5 times your occupancy. So if you have an occupancy of 10, maybe you should have about 15 plates, 15 to 20 plates. Salt and pepper seems to be like the biggest bang for my buck. Whenever I go there, salt's gone. And salt is cheap. Like I'll get those big things of salt at Walmart. I actually like to put plastic cups and plates, and what I find is that's what people use the most. I don't know if it's their fear of breaking things, but the thing is, especially if they have kids. Can openers always go missing. I like to have this is the brand that I went with, the Keurig Duo. Pick a brand and go with it. This isn't set to stone. Find one that you like, but just make sure that it's easy to use. If it's too complex, they're going to call you. First aid kits under the sink, and have a fire extinguisher close by. It's supposed to be close to the kitchen within 30 feet. And we'll talk a little bit about safety later here. Silicone oven mitts have been huge for me. I remember initially I was like, when I saw those oven mitts, they were like burning through them. And the one thing is, you don't want your guests to burn. Bathrooms, a lot of it is going to be dependent on what your cleaners are providing you. The one tip I'll give you, huge tip, shower liners. They're dirt cheap. They're very easy to change. Whenever I go places, I look at the shower liners and you could see. And the other thing is, guests are going to flood your downstairs. I'm going to let you know, because they don't take, if you have shower liners, they're not keeping it inside. So you're going to have to find a way to really message them and say, hey, make sure you have your shower liners inside the tub if you have a shower tub combo. Because if not, they're going to leave it outside and it's going to leak outside. So cleaning supplies, make sure you have your own vacuum in the house. You never want your cleaner bringing in their vacuum, because they might have vacuumed another place that has bed bugs. And when they use their vacuum, they're going to spread bed bugs all over. Just get your own vacuum. Ceiling fan cleaners, what I find is if you don't provide the tools for them, they're not going to do it. It's just too much work for them to go over there and try to clean the ceiling fans. And what you'll find is some guests actually like to clean. So just leave just something really simple. It doesn't have to be elaborate or anything. Just like a broom and a simple mop. Doesn't have to be fancy. I do have people ask about amenities. To be honest with me, I try not to be too fancy. The reason why is because I don't know how to manage that. Like for me, from a distance, people ask, do you leave, like I have friends that have these golf carts. Oh man, that's like red flag to me. I would worry that someone would break that, and I'd have no idea how to like get that back if they left it at the beach or something. But there is a company out there, it's called Rent Mount. Her name's Madison, I forget her last name, but she's 24 years old. She has this company called Rent Mount. And so the thing is, what you can do is just steer your guests towards different areas where they can rent those amenities. Board games work great. They're very cheap, and they'll have a ton of fun with Jenga and cornhole. So the single most important thing in an STR is actually your smoke alarms. I know a lot of times people focus in on design and what amenities and all of this, but the most important thing, to be honest with you, is your smoke detector. There's horror stories coming out after horror stories, and that's really going to be the downfall of our industry, because to be honest with you, a lot of our short-term rentals are not safe. There's the First Alert or Kitty. Those are the best ones on the market. You want to make sure that they're dual detection alarms, that they detect both fire and smoke. Just know that you have to replace the batteries every 10 years, or not the batteries, the smoke detectors itself. Here's another thing. If you're buying an older home, they don't make yellow smoke detectors. They're all white. So if you see yellow smoke detectors, just replace it. Carbon monoxide alarms, make sure that you get ones with the digital readouts. Those ones are better. And not only that, for the Airbnb algorithm, it's going to help you that you check the box that you have the carbon monoxide detector. There are some digital ones out there. I have one here. It's the Nest. To be honest with you, they're garbage. Like the reviews on them are bad, and they're not the best ones. The best ones if you go with the first alert or kitty. So this slide is like busy. Just know that a lot of people drink. A lot of people will drink at your short-term rental. The very minimum it should hit is 85 decibels, and that's within 10 feet. And when people drink, they're not going to hear the smoke alarms. And not only that, there's people that are smoking nowadays, and there's a lot of elderly people can't hear. So you want to make sure that whatever smoke detector you have, it hits the standards, and the bare minimum is 85 decibels. There's this tool, it's called Breezeway. So if you open up this link, you guys will have access to this. Open up that link, and there's like a self-test that you can go through that will show you whether your house is safe for a short-term rental or not. And the one thing is you could show that to insurance companies, and actually I think they'll lower down your rates a little bit. Not a lot, but there's so many, our rates are so high as it is right now. Barbecue grills, a lot of times people get the ones with the bristles. You should get barbecue grills, the round ones, because what happens is when people are barbecuing, they'll actually eat those bristles and could do some damage. People ask about barbecue grills. It's a big no on decks, no on wooden decks. Strap-on dressers, a lot of people aren't doing that. Like I said, these are probably more important than a lot of your design stuff. Pool and hot tub, make sure that you'll get those signs. A lot of times people don't get these signs because they look ugly, but you got to put them on, guys. I'm just letting you know. Lighting is a huge thing. 60% of accidents happen because guests arrive late within the first arrival and within the first hour arrival, and it's not lit up enough. What happens when guests show up to my property? I could tell you it's a drivable area. Kids, they have to go pee, and they're running in there, and the places aren't lit up enough. So make sure that your places are lit very well. Tons of slip, trips, and falls out there. Fire extinguisher, that's a tool you give to your guests to save your property. Don't hide it because it's ugly. I see a lot of people hiding these things because it's ugly. I'm sorry. The thing is, you want it to be as visible as possible. If there's a fire, you want them to be able to just grab it. And it has to be within 30 feet of all cooking appliances. There's tons of tools available to you. If you go on this Google Drive, I do share. There's a cool video. I touched on safety there a little bit, but there's a really good hour-long video of me interviewing Justin Ford, who's a safety expert. It scares you because a lot of times we focus on setup so much, but he tells you all the horror stories of Airbnb hosts not making their property safe. That really scared me, and so I started focusing a lot more on safety. But there's a cool video, YouTube video with him. Even if you look up Justin Ford on YouTube with my name, Alex Sabio, you'll see my interview with him. There's different tools available for you in the Google Drive. There's a pre-launch checklist, questions to ask the cleaners. There's a spreadsheet for your properties, meaning what should I document? And what I like to do is I have videos for everything, and that Google spreadsheet will show you what, or an example of one of the playlists that I made for my property. There's a list of items to buy. I even copied one from another influencer out there. They had a list of stuff to buy, so you could take a look at their list as well. And yeah, just take a look at that Google spreadsheet.
Alex, I just shared you a link. I caught the middle of it. I've been meaning to go back, but it's a Breezeway Elevate Safety First 15 Tips for a Safe Vacation Rental Experience. So I remember they talked about was once a year, you're supposed to clean behind your refrigerator because as a vacation rental, the refrigerator actually spends most of its time empty, which makes it work harder, which makes the dust collect. So the things that we don't think about as a rental versus like our personal homes, they give some tips then on things to look out for, cleaning tips, whatever. Yeah. So there's another one too.
Yeah, that's a good one. And the one thing, because I don't do this in my home, but you're supposed to vacuum your smoke detectors. Like you just put the hose up there and vacuum it real quick, because what will happen is it'll collect dust and it's not gonna be as efficient. So you're actually supposed to like test it and then vacuum it. Anyway, that's some things that we talk to our cleaners about, like maybe they could do that. So final tips. I know I've been rambling a lot here, but there's a lot here. You're going to wear a lot of hats. You're going to do everything when you first start your short-term rental. But eventually you want to be the CEO, where you're just managing everything from a distance and you're the one making all of the decisions. Just always try to put yourself in that CEO role eventually. I put Freddie. So I have a good friend of mine, Freddie, who purchased his first short-term rental. And whenever the door lock and the Ring camera would disconnect, he would fly back to Tennessee to do it himself. You're talking $700 round trip ticket, not only that, time away from his family. And he told me about it after his third time doing it. He said, damn it, I hate going back to my property because the Ring doorbell, it keeps disconnecting. What do I do? I'm like, dude, you need to hire someone, man. I could pay someone. And they would be elated because all they're doing is going to press a reset button. So just be the CEO. when you're setting up, just create a list and priorities. Because like I said, you are going to keep adding more and more to your plate every single time you're setting up. I do believe you can hire all of this out. I really do. But the one thing is you need to experience it the first time at least, just so that way stay really focused, don't add too much on your plate. Film everything. I have all of these 60-second clips on how to troubleshoot everything. And what you find is people are visual, your guests will be visual. And if you send them a 60-second straight to the point, hey, this is what to do in case you can't find a remote, go right here. And I think that goes a long way versus trying to write everything out. And I do have, we'll talk a little bit about it on the next week, like a digital guidebook. Time is money. You got to get it up and running right away, day one, or not day one. It's like within a week's time. So don't be afraid to spend money to get it up and running right away. I've been harping on you guys to create social media content. I think that's one of the things people don't focus in on, and you're going to grow tremendously with social media. Even if you don't want to post it now, just have the media there in the future. So that way, if you want to start posting it later on, I wish I had it. That's the only reason why I'm telling you guys. I wish I had it. I wish I did it better, and I would have grown so much better. It's going to be really stressful. Just breathe and take it in. Be a guest in your home. And after your long days, just go out there and be a guest. Really be like, we're going to try to hit up a restaurant at least once a day while we're here, and experience what it's like to be a guest in your home and in the area. Write down all of these processes, and you're going to create standard operating procedures. Because remember, you're going to want to fire yourself, and you're going to want to be able to hire someone else down the road to do all these things. There's going to be a huge learning curve, and it's not going to be perfect. If it doesn't work, it's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll change it up. I did all the research on which door lock to get, which cameras and all of that. And then I wound up changing it up. Sometimes it's not, my system isn't going to work for you, and that's perfectly fine. All right, guys, I think I've talked. Any other questions out there?
Alex, this is a very specific question. Are you getting bed bug protectors just for the mattress or pillows? What all? Pillows
Yeah.
too? Okay.
Yeah, pillows too. That place that I sent you, they're really good at stuff. And I would 4 per bed, because you'll have typically 4 pillows. But not only that, I get 2 backup pillows per bed.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're really good about it. So I know it's a lot, but just you could rewatch this when you guys get closer to setup. And like I said, I do have a list and a Google like document that kind of has a different checklists of different things to have on there. So
I've got one quick question. It was suggested to have Amazon Alexa. Most people unplugged it. I think I had one guest like ordered Amazon Music or something, and luckily I caught it and canceled it because it was on my account.
oh my gosh.
It has a lot of cool things, like it can actually connect with the garage and you can tell it to open the garage door. So there's a lot of cool things, but I also know there's a lot of paranoia, and so then people unplug it. And I'm just curious what your experience has been with those.
I think I don't put them in, and I think it's going to be regional in your market. But the one thing is, if you're going to do it, just let the person know that it's there. The other thing is there are noise monitor devices. We didn't even go over that. That's going to be very location specific. If you're in a condo, I think it's really important to have it. There's one called Minute, and what it does is not only does it sense the smoke, the noise, but it senses marijuana. Because marijuana is something like very subjective, I guess, that, or at least what I found out there. If your cleaners go in there and say it smells like marijuana, if you go there and try to get money from the guests, say, hey, you smoked, to try to prove that is difficult. And so there's the noise monitors. It's called Wind, WYND. And so Wind will sense the marijuana smell and actually document it. And not only that, it's also a noise monitoring device. Next week, I'm going to talk a little bit about the post setup, like how to self-manage from a distance using software and how to just handle different situations.